Good morning and good afternoon to everybody. Welcome to the HP Latex R Series Academy. Thanks for taking time out of your busy schedules today for about a 90-minute academy. And we hope you find it useful and informative. My name is Tom Wittenberg. I'm the Industry Relations and Events Manager for Large Format here at HP, and I'm also your moderator for today. Joining me today is John Stevens, our North American Channel Sales Manager, Mr. Tom Giglio, our North American Latex Business Lead, and Dan Donnelly and Fernando Garcia, who are both solutions architects for the R Series in our Alpharetta, Georgia facility. Before getting started, a couple of things. On the logistics side, number one, we will have a formal Q&A at the end of this, probably around the last 15 minutes, something of that nature. But if you do have questions, please drop them into the Q&A box or the chat box at the bottom, and we'll get to them as we can. We will be recording this session, so if you are interested, please let me know. There will be an email coming out after this event. It'll have my email on it. And you can just ping me and say, please send me the recording, and I will send it off to you. And then finally, I do have a poll, and it's an anonymous poll. It's not a test. It's just to find out how familiar everybody is with the R Series. So I'm going to pop it up here in just a second. And if you would, just take a minute, pick the one that fits you, and that'll help us tailor this a little bit more to your specific needs. So I'm going to post it right now. It's really, how familiar are you with the Latex R Series? Either very, somewhat, I know the name, or not familiar at all. Okay, so it looks like about 60% of everybody attending are somewhat familiar with it. We've got about 30% that are very familiar, and another 10% that don't know a whole lot about it, but have some knowledge of it. So with that, let's turn it over to Tom Giglio.
Welcome, everybody. So glad to have you here today. I'd like to introduce John Stevens. He's making an appearance for us today. He's our U.S. channel manager, and I know he wanted to have some welcome comments. So John, why don't you take it from here?
Tom, thanks. Yeah, just real quick, I always like to just jump in, and these guys, really it's the technology, and Dan and Fernando and Tom that are providing most of the content and the value here. But I do like to set some context if I can. So for those of us that have been in the graphics industry, sign and graphics or graphics industry for you know, a lot of years, you know, myself since 1991, you know, watched, there's a couple, I think, concepts that kind of happened, and one of the concepts is talking about going from analog to digital. So if you think about even sign making, right, when you had to know how to paint letters, it really went digital when, you know, Gerber entered the 4B, and then of course it moved into more of a Windows-based plotter, right, cutting vinyl. And then what happened is it really moved digitally into wide format, right, where hey, it was way more productive and efficient to print those colors onto vinyl or whatever substrate you were trying to do in a flexible scenario. And what happened is you really ran with, which became solvent or eco-solvent or whatever you want to call it, right? That really kind of happened in maybe late 90s, and then that was the predominant technology really through the early 2000s. And, you know, everybody was kind of part of that, and it was, you know, to be a little, not technical, but what was it? It was solvent ink and a piezo print head, and mostly Japanese-based technologies, right? And a lot of us were involved in that. And then at the same time, you had this, HP was involved in wide format graphics, but really from more from the water-based side, from the Z series, right? DesignJet. Most everybody's heard of DesignJet, but DesignJet didn't really necessarily play in the sign and graphic space once solvent became prevalent because it lacked one of the requirements, which was really the outdoor durability aspect that solvent provided. So most sign and graphics, that's why I keep saying the word sign and graphics, there was an outdoor durability requirement. So what happened is you had HP, you know, an engineering company with a background in print heads, invented thermal inkjet print heads, one of the world's largest ink companies, right, and water-based coatings. And so what happened really back in the 2000s is HP decided they want to enter the sign and graphic space. Now they did a lot of that through acquisition. If you've been around in buying companies like Noor and Cytex and Colorspan. And actually did an OEM with Seiko if you really go way back. But HP wanted to take its intellectual properties and tackle this challenge of outdoor durability in the graphic space, but not do it with solvent. And not do it with solvent because really of the environmental aspects and HP's commitment on that side of it. So what happened is you have ink chemists, right? You have engineers, you have printhead engineers and writing systems engineers. And what happened is in 2008, we went public and went to the market with this technology we call HP Latex. And what was it? And it was very different at the time. It was basically us entering this outdoor durable roll-to-roll space saying that, well, it's not solvent, it's what? It's this ink we call latex, which really is a water-based ink. A lot of people still don't know that, but it is a water-based ink, but it had the same performance characteristics of solvent, actually better. It had same or similar economic features. It had thermal inkjet printhead. So first time anybody had ever done that, right? Stood up and said, hey, we're gonna enter this race with a different technology. Very similar to some ways what Tesla does today with a car, right? But this was in 2008. So what happened is we went through Gen 1 and then we went through Gen 2. And then really starting in 2014 is when Gen 3 happened, which was really almost the state of the art where we are today. And that's also when we became #1. So if you look at the outdoor durable roll-to-roll space, now you can talk about 64-inch, what we would call low volume, all the way into 3.2 meter, which is really called mid-volume or production space. HP Latex dominates. And so if you've ever heard of a 3600 or a 3200 or the 1500 or the 365 or the 500 series, those are all what we would call Gen 3 latex printers that if you look at market share from IDC, we've been dominating that space since 2014. And everybody on this call, you know, has been very involved in that. And it's been a lot of fun and it was a fun ride. But in the same way, like as I mentioned, buying Cytex and buying Noor, we also did have a rigid offering, what we called our FB series, which we also dominated the marketplace with, if you don't know that. But it was legacy what? UV. So rigid, when you said rigid, that meant what? I mean, if you, again, back to my comment about analog to screen print, the minute you jump analog to digital, the minute you jump into a rigid conversation, analog meant screen print, digital meant, hey, let's do digital printing on substrates directly. And that was what? That was UV technology with a piezo head. So we we did that with our acquisition of Cytex and Colorspan. So what happened? All these years, everybody on this call was having, you know, a ton of success with our series. I mean, latex, I mean. And what did they love about latex? You had this indoor quality because of the characteristic of a thermal inkjet printhead, very high resolution, but yet you had the durability of solvent without all the downsides of solvent. And what we would get asked, once we reach this success point, people say, this is awesome. So you're selling me roll to roll, I've got latex, awesome thermal head, change it myself, outstanding indoor quality with outdoor durability. That was one of the monikers that kind of came out of that whole invention, indoor quality, outdoor durability. When are you guys gonna do this in rigid? Because I'm buying your latex printer, but then I'm buying a legacy UV printer from you and all the downsides of that, because the trade-off was, you know, really those conversations, quite honestly, were really economic conversations. If we were talking to you about rigid back then, it was an economic conversation. Like, why are you running 2 roll-to-rolls, printing on vinyl, sticking it on substrate? Let us show you the ROI where it's better. It was never better image quality wise. It was better from a financial and productivity point of view, but it wasn't an IQ discussion. And the conversation for years was, hey, when are you going to take all this wonderful attributes of latex and do it on rigid, which somebody would have told you back then, not possible. Can't take water-based ink, make it stick to chloroplast, make it stick to PVC. Can't do it. It's not possible. And what happened? We knew it was being worked on. Tom Giglio was one of the champions of that project, you know, for years and years, working behind the scenes on that. And it was 2 years ago that we had our first showings of the R series, and it was very similar to what happened. We kind of take it back to 2014 when the Gen 3 Latex launched, and we are still riding that wave today in Gen 3. Matter of fact, June, and I know we're all dealing with COVID, but we just had our biggest month ever in last June, just a month ago. And so, latex is still a very powerful part of this outdoor durable graphics market. And then, 2 years ago, equally as excited to say, wow, we did the R series. And of course, you had all this pent up demand, and it just was a huge hit. As a matter of fact, we were so far ahead of ourselves in trying to keep up there for the first year. And now we're having another renaissance with the R series because of all this COVID demand and the fact that people are looking at now, they want to get that kind of quality and that kind of capability. So that's really the story of latex. It's, first of all, it's understanding latex goes back to 08 with HP, and it's been a huge success. And then it was like, okay, when are you going to take that to rigid? And that's what the R series, that's what the R stands for, HP Latex Rigid. So it's a whole nother platform for us. And we actually have discontinued our legacy UV platform. We're not going to do that anymore. We view that as the old way. And we view the future as printing with a latex ink onto all these different rigid substrates. And that's really what Tom specializes in, and our guys down in Alpharetta, Fernando and Dan are joining us from our Graphics Experience Center today in Alpharetta, Georgia. Normally, we love hosting customers there. We've done a ton of events. It's an amazing space. If you've ever been there, love to have everybody there because it's certainly super impactful to meet people, understand their applications, and see the technology. But we're all kind of dealing with this pandemic right now, so we're trying to do the next best thing. And for us, that's to invite you in there virtually with our session today. So number one, thank you to all of our customers and prospects. So for those of you that are taking time out of your Friday to join us, we always appreciate that. Thank you so much for doing that. And then number two, thanks to our partners. The R series is really sold through a network of resellers in the United States that have made investments in having demo units, investments in having what we call latex experience centers, and they're also subject matter experts, and we'd like to thank them for their support and their investments in the R series. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to really the host that thank you, Tom, for even giving me the opportunity to do that little intro. But Tom Giulio has been really the champion of the R series for many, many years, and has been a UV flatbed guy, applications guy for many, many years. Actually, to talk about the versatility of the technology, Tom just hosted a thermoforming session on R series yesterday. So a lot of cool stuff we get to do on the R series. And so with that, I'm going to turn it over to the experts, Tom, and our guys down in Alpharetta. So thanks, Tom.
Sure. Thanks, John. Always good to hear from you, especially on a Friday. Yeah, the R series has been great. A lot of fun. We really enjoy seeing our customers' journey with this product. No matter where they are in the process that John described, whether they're roll-to-roll users or flatbed customers converting over to latex. We just keep building and building and building on it. So I just want to go through the agenda with you really quick today. I'm going to say just a few words about strategy and markets. I think John captured a lot of that very well. We're going to shoot and do a live demo, multi-camera type endeavor from Atlanta today. And then I'll come back and just talk about some success touch points, just about what our customers are really finding that the R is getting them into. And that's really, really important. So it's not really a carrot to keep everybody around, but really that's how they've been able to transcend their business, pivot their business using this platform. And then we'll open up for Q&A. So nothing's super difficult today. We'll just have a lot of fun. I do have a couple public service announcements. First of all, we have lots of upcoming events. We do this on a monthly basis. We love to engage with our customers, and like John said, we don't have the ability to do it in person like we normally do in Atlanta or even in San Diego, but the virtual way we've been able to mobilize pretty efficiently. So we've got some academies for different products. You can look at them up on the screen. Yours truly is hosting a Plastics News to Cranes publication on August 11th, which is an Ask the Expert. It's really more on plastic industrial type printing and thermoforming. And then we have another R Academy in August. So this just gives you a little context around that. I did want to do a PSA on our virtual booth. We have an HP virtual booth. It's pretty cool. If you want to deep dive into many of the other things, sign and decor, display type things, fabrics. If you want to just have a portal where you can get into a virtual booth, navigate, register for events like this. We've got lots of COVID resources like cookbooks, how-to guides, on different types of new signage that's becoming really relevant to us, even customer testimonials and stories. And then if you do want to have a live personalized demo, you can use this tool to do that as well. So the HP virtual booth is pretty cool. So anyway, let me just say a few words about strategy and success. First of all, we look at the market in three distinct buckets, if you will. An entry level, a production, industrial. Prior to 2020, this is kind of what the landscape looked like. We really dominated the entry level, and then we look at this as maybe about $100,000 market per printer. With the R series, the Plus models, which are our fully loaded models, the Plus is a designation that we have for every accessory plus extra warranty that constitutes a Plus model. So we carved out this production space and really thought that was really the ideal landing spot for this platform. And then we always knew there were some big iron guys out there. There were some industrial folks that would spend, 500, 800,000, even upwards of $1 million on certain presses, but still there were gaps, okay? And like I said, we dominated with our FBs. That's your UV curable technology that's kind of in the past for us now. We've adopted this production space. We've landed here, but we still have a lot of applicable relevance to the industrial side. We still do a lot of things. Well, I'll talk about those in a second. So currently what we've done is we've kind of augmented in the entry-level space. We put in our 1000 base unit here. We've added another SKU to the portfolio because what we found is that these two markets are kind of merging into one. The entry-level value is perceived higher than what the current offering is from a lot of our competitors. If you buy a $90,000 or $100,000 printer, well, for that size of investment, you really don't get the functionality or the long-term value. And with latex, people have seen that. They've been able to look at a lot of the features you'll hear Dan and Fernando talk about today, like color gamut, white ink, a lot of our hot loading, a lot of our workflow type things. And really, they wanted to grab those out of the Plus models, but at a different price point, we've offered the 1000 to get people into that, and that's working really well for us. But on the industrial side too, we may not displace on a one-to-one basis, a Latex 2000 or an R2000 for maybe one of these larger machines, but like I said, we fill in a lot of gaps. We do white ink especially well. We have great gamut, so we can print reds, oranges, yellows at speed. So again, some of these weak points of some of these larger pieces of equipment, we can insert some of the R series in there, and they fulfill that need. So that's kind of where we are, currently in the market with our three SKUs. What people have really said about this, and I really, these are just data points I want you to think about before I kick it over to Dan and Fernando. What is important most to customers is really about image quality. That is really the hallmark of this platform. It's about image quality. It's about seeing less dots. It's about giving more color fidelity, giving just overall better image quality on lots of different applications. So that's huge. It goes into the ink thickness, it goes into the gamut, it goes into how we manage our white ink, but the ink is super important. The productivity and capacity, and you're gonna see this live today. You're gonna see Dan use the hot loading feature and explain that. You get to see a bird's eye camera of that as well. But again, we are sellable up and down the line of all of our production speeds. There is not a mode on this machine that we will try to sell you where you cannot sell that. In terms of color, in terms of artifacts, that is just something unique to latex. And then the workflow. And again, you want to pay attention to everything that's going on in the background, how the sheets are being loaded, how they're being managed, because at the end of the day, when you can gain in workflow, okay, you can get your life back. You can get production time, you can increase your productivity, you can lessen your labor costs, and so on and so forth. So workflow is hugely important. We've been in that business for a while on flatbeds. We carried it over to the R, and that's been great. The printhead architecture, it's one of the last things we'll talk about, but it's one of the most important. Being able to control your own destiny by putting in your own printheads, where you don't have to call a technician, you don't have to pay upwards of 10 times the cost for printheads. Being able to deliver the very best quality to your customers is especially important, and our printhead architecture drives that because we invented that printhead architecture. So you'll hear more about that. It's an interesting presentation. And then the last thing is white ink. White ink is a game changer on HP Latex. It's a very white ink, requires less maintenance, less cost, and it's on demand. You use it when you want to use it. So I won't really go into the details, but these are kind of the 5 choice points you probably should take note of and make sure you really understand, because that's how the value prop is built around this. So I'll come back on after the guys are done and let's go over a couple applications, just a few slides on that. But really the heart of the show and the value here today is Fernando Garcia, Dan Donnelly talking to you. So Fernando, I'm gonna stop sharing and throw it over to you and take it away.
All right, thank you, Tom. Well, hi everyone. My name is Fernando Garcia. I'm a solutions architect here at the Graphics Experience Center. I've been with HP now 8 years. Just as excited today as I was when I first got hired. And I'm excited today to share with you some of our technology. I'll be presenting part of this technology as well. And I'm gonna turn it over to Dan so that he can tell us a little bit about himself and what he's gonna be doing for us today. So Dan?
Welcome everyone. Welcome to the Virtual Graphics Experience Center here in Alpharetta, Georgia. My name is Dan Donnelly. I'm a solutions architect. I'm at HP for about 5.5 years, and I'm proud to show you the R series printer today. In my portion of this presentation, I will be running the printer for you, printing both rigids and flexibles. I am currently standing on the output side of the printer. The next time you see me, I will be on the input side of the printer, getting everything ready to go. So to get this started, I'll send you back to my colleague, the great and powerful Fernando Garcia.
Thank you, Dan. All right. So we'll get started here. And I think the first thing we're going to do is just to give you the best experience possible for this presentation. We want to make some changes on your Zoom application or make sure you have them enabled. And the first thing we are going to do is at the top of your screen, you'll see a green bar. Next to it, it'll say View Options. You click on that, you'll see a drop-down menu. Make sure that the side-by-side mode is selected. You have a check mark next to it. That's going to split your screen. You'll be able to see whatever we share on your left-hand side of that screen, and the presenter's video feed will be on the right-hand side. The next thing is on the top right-hand corner, you'll see an icon that it'll either say Speaker View or Gallery View. If it says Speaker View, go ahead and click on it. If it says Gallery View, that means you are already on Speaker View. You can always toggle back and forth at the end of the presentation when we do the Q&A. And then finally, once you have your screen split, you see that line in the middle. There's a handle you can grab hold with your mouse, and you can drag it left and right to maximize or minimize whichever side you want to focus more on. So John did an excellent job giving us a history of HP Latex technology. And I'm really fortunate to be part of that growth and innovation. And so, like John said, early adopters of this technology, that they have been waiting with anticipation the day that HP will release a latex flatbed. And that's exactly what we did 2 years ago. The R series, it's a culmination of many years of research and development. It incorporates everything that our customers love about our latex products, and that means productivity, that means versatility and the ease of use. And it also incorporates features and robustness of our UV flatbeds, so you get the best of both worlds. R stands for rigid and it stands for roll. And here are some value propositions that this technology brings to the table. In terms of quality, it's a water-based ink, means that this is a green ink, it's odorless. Now with the R, we reformulated that third generation ink and we added more pigment to it, so more vibrant colors, more so than UV and solvent-based technologies. A unique touch and feel on rigid media, and a wide range of substrates now that we can print to rigid media with latex. In terms of productivity, a lot of innovation that we're going to go through as we present, but one specific one, it's our productive build system, which I'll cover in detail. Of course, you can print unattended overnight with flexible media. And our HP Print OS ecosystem that's going to help you manage and monitor your printers, your fleet of printers, as well as your production remotely from anywhere in the world. It all comes with our HP service experience and HP remote support. And for the first time ever, HP latex white ink, very opaque, one of the most opaque and glossiest white inks in the industry for large format, all with automatic maintenance and low waste solution, and sometimes zero waste, which Dan is going to explain to us. So the printer comes in two sizes. We have the R1000 that can print up to 64 inches in width. The R2000 can print up to 98 inches in width. The R2000 is going to help you get it into that nice wide roll-to-roll prints as well. Now, both printers received Product of the Year award at STI, one of our largest trade show of the year. That happened last year, and as well as the Innovations Award at ISA. Both printers can print on rigid media with the help of these support tables. We have the tables positioned on the input side and on the output side. Dan's going to give us a live demonstration of that. And we can print on flexible media as well with the help of the roll-to-roll accessory. When it comes to substrates, these printers can print on both rigid, flexible. We can print up to 2 inches in thickness. If the media happens to be 2 inches or less, chances are we can print on it. But one of the benefits about our R series, unlike UV, is that we don't have to mask our belt. And I'll explain that in a minute, but as you can see here on these images, these are images of what is known as the static flatbeds or true flatbeds. These flatbeds typically have a single source of vacuum. In other words, one vacuum pump. And the surface of the bed is split in vacuum zones. If the operator is not utilizing all the vacuum zones, the operator is forced to mask off and tape off those open zones to prevent any loss of suction. This can take a lot of time, depending on the complexity of the layout you're printing. So this is what we call downtime. Our system is a very smart system. I'm going to make use of our virtual lab so we can get a closer look. Here's a rendering of the R2000. And we're going to go in closer here. And we can see the design of this belt. This is what is responsible to transport the media into the printer. This belt is a mesh-like material. It's a transferable mesh, meaning it has very good flow of air. This allows us to draw down very good vacuum through it. But it's also designed and weaved in a way that we can print onto it. So in the event that you want to do edge-to-edge printing or borderless printing, you can bleed off and print on this belt. Having ink on the belt does not hurt the performance of the printer at all or the belt. In fact, our engineers printed on the belt for 90 days straight with no issues. It doesn't build up like UV does. We print with a really thin film of ink. Now we see an animation here, you're gonna see some arrows. These arrows represent the 3 different vacuum pumps that we have. So it's not just one. We have 3 for a very robust, very powerful vacuum system. In terms of vacuum also, we have a smart way of detecting where the media is traveling. So we only enable those zones that are necessary to draw down and hold the media. So no need to mask off or tape off. In terms of accuracy, our engineers did their homework. This belt has no lateral movement. What does that mean? Other belts in the industry, other competitors, those belts are considered a consumable. They have to be replaced over time because they lose tension, therefore affecting quality and registration. And then unique to latex technology, unique to HP, we have a belt advanced auto correction system. It's a little device which has over 50 patents by HP. It's about 3 inches tall, sits underneath the belt, and it's constantly taking rapid fire pictures of that belt as it moves. So regardless of which print mode you choose, whether you print at the fastest speed or at the slowest speed, you will always get the highest resolution. Okay, so that is our belt system. Moving right along. Here's the burst side of that belt on the R2000. We have an input vacuum zone here driven by 1 vacuum pump. We have the print zone here, where this is where the carriage moves back and forth, again, driven by a 2nd vacuum pump. And then the curing zone or the output zone with multiple zones, also driven by a 3rd vacuum pump. Now, whenever we are comparing solutions, print solutions, we always compare throughput, speed, how many boards an hour, how many square feet an hour, etc. But we fail to recognize that the speed of a product or productivity is determined by the speed of the operator and by the type of workflow you're working with. So the R series offers us a solution called hot loading. Hot loading is the ability to load, print, and offload simultaneously and continuously. So let me explain. When you first load a sheet, and as she's being printed, the printer will prompt the operator to load the 2nd one. When that 2nd sheet's being printed, that 1st one can now be collected, and the 3rd one can now be loaded all simultaneously in parallel. We do this with the help of support tables at the very beginning that can help stage the media, and with tables on the output side that help collect the media. On a competitor's workflow, this is what happens. You load the sheet onto the bed. Then the operator has to determine if there are any open vacuum zones. That means add tape. That's downtime. They hit the print button. Gantry comes out, goes across the print bed, starts printing. And then until the print is not finished, the operator cannot collect and load the next sheet. So this process here obviously takes more time, more effort to produce a production run. So we're going to ask Dan to give us a live demonstration of this hot loading procedure. So we're going to switch live on 3, 2, 1.
Welcome back to the R series printer here at the GEC. So now I'm going to show you the features that Fernando just covered. When the operator comes in the morning, you walk up to this nice large touch screen. We have one on the input side and the output side, a 23.5-inch touch screen, and hit something called check and clean. The printer will automatically bring up the power, wipe the print heads, check them, and get ready to print. So in minutes, your operator is ready to start printing. This is automation. The operator does not have to wipe print heads. There is no purging with latex ink like there is with UV ink. Simply wipe the print heads, check it, start printing. Again, remember, the printer is doing that automatically. The other automation that really dominates with this printer is the media management. Here, I'm going to take corrugated plastic, very familiar product, and we're going to print images to the corrugated plastic. On our touchscreen, we have access to our substrates and our substrate settings. There are hundreds of substrates that can be saved here in your IPS. New substrates can be downloaded from Print OS, which is our cloud-based print management system, through something called Media Locator. In the media locator, we have all sorts of products like PVC and vinyl and paper products, all the types of digital products that you can print to. You could download those settings directly to the IPS and get ready to print. Those settings are what will manage this piece of, in this case, corrugated plastic. It'll manage this through the printer during the printing process, meaning it has the vacuum settings and heat settings and airflow, et cetera, associated with getting a perfect print. Also, the operator has full access to your ink cartridges, your print heads, maintenances, everything, and your artwork from this touchscreen. On the R1000, we can print a 4x8 sheet in portrait mode because the width of the belt is 64 inches wide. On our R2000, it's 98 inches wide. So on on the R2000, you can print a 4x8 sheet landscape or 2 4x8 sheets in portrait mode. In our mock production run today, I'm going to do pre-cut sheets, 1824s, and we're going to run these 3 up in this case here. So we call this multi-up. Also, as Fernando pointed out, hot loading. So we're going to print 3 images, and then behind that, we're going to load 3 more sheets and print 3 more images. What's really great, it could be the same image, one time, hundreds of times, or you could have multiple images on here, combinations of different artwork and different files, different quantities. The hot loading part is what's really impressive. Here, we have our media set. I set my media on this input table. It becomes a staging table for me. When I loaded the corrugated plastic, told the printer to start, it automatically pulled the media in on our belt. The automatic vacuum engaged, moved the media in, and measured the thickness, the position, and the width of each piece. And it also knows that there's 3 pieces in there. I don't have to tell a quantity either. The artwork is placed directly onto those individual pieces, again, automatically by the printer. This will start printing. As soon as it starts printing, the belt will be moving forward using the OBOS system that Fernando mentioned for that perfect print. During that, all of our vacuum is engaged, of course. And the vacuum is only engaged where it needs to be. If I just had 1 piece in there, the vacuum would be engaged for 1 piece. Multiple pieces, automatic. The printer knows, no need for taping or masking. Getting to the hot loading, what we see here is that as the printer is printing, once the board gets beyond a certain point, it allows me to load the next 3 sheets. The alignment bar comes down, the vacuum turns off in the loading zone, the light comes on, signaling to the operator to load the next 3 pieces. I press my foot pedal, and now the vacuum will engage again in the loading zone and pull that media in to go into the printing zone. So keep in mind that automated vacuum never turned off in the printing zone. That would be terrible. But it did turn off and allow me to load these pieces and then re-engage, again, automatically. So you could see this automation, you're gonna hear me say that a lot, and the ease of use with this printer. It's very hands-off in the sense that the operator can be doing other things and being very productive at this time. The printer never stops printing. I could be bringing new files in. I could be getting media ready for the next print run. So what HP has done, speaking of next print run, is we've also allowed you to do hot loading and use different media. What do I mean by that, different media? Well, we just printed corrugated plastic, but now I'm going to put some foam board in. The foam board is different than the corrugated plastic. It's a different material. It's a different thickness. We're also going to run at a different print speed, going to run at a different orientation, could be different size. So completely different job. The printer now allows me, it knows that I have it set up that I'm going to print the foam board next. You'll see that the printer will respond automatically as it's printing, never stops printing that corrugated plastic. The light will come on here in the loading zone. That's signaling to me that the vacuum has turned off in the loading zone, allowing me to now load my foam board. When I'm standing on the input side of the printer, I get the notification by the light coming on and a beep. But if I was on the other side of the printer or somewhere else in my shop, the beacon itself, my status beacon, would flash yellow. And when it flashes yellow, that's telling me to load the next sheet, or that the printer is ready to load the next sheet as well. So the printer is working with you. The operator is not concentrating on taking care of the printer, we'll say. The operator is simply working on getting the prints done. And that's what's very, very important in the process here, because of, you could see, Tom had mentioned to this, you could see that automation that you get as a result, okay? I did load the foam board. I did mention to you that it is a different speed. The belt, as it's traveling forward, and the OBOS, of course, is measuring it, making sure that it's perfect. Well, we are running 3-pass on the corrugated plastic. So now that the corrugated plastic has exited the belt, the foam board that's 4-pass will start printing, right? Because the belt's moving at a different speed. But what's important is that it allowed me to put the boards in and go do something else, right? I'm here talking to you. I'm not waiting for the other boards to finish. So you can see that the overlap of that work is what's going to increase your production. So I'm going to go to the output side now, and we'll take a look at the corrugated plastic signs that we printed. Here on the output side, we have the 6 corrugated signs that we printed. This table, actually, it's holding the media for me. That's great while I come around here to get it. I do want to point out, this is also was mentioned by Tom, was also mentioned by Fernando, the quality that we get. I hold this as steady as I can, and you'll see with these solids, those of you that do know UV, that dark solids, rich solids like this, are where you're going to really see your banding, right? Especially on the faster print modes. Well, look at the deep red, the deep purple, look at the smoothness, right? Now, this is 3-pass. This is our fastest mode. So, meaning every mode, print mode that we have is sellable. What our fastest mode means, we're printing 27.5 4x8s an hour on our R2000. So 27.5 4x8s an hour at this quality. Very high gamut with this ink. Fernando's going to talk more about that. But as you see, this, not only am I printing fast, I'm only using 80% ink in this print mode. Look at the richness that you get at just 80% ink. So I'm printing fast and I'm printing cheap. This is latex ink. John had mentioned how it started coming through the years, and we really dominated the car wrap industry, right? Because of the stretchability of the ink. R series ink, exact same thing, same stretchability, 3-year outdoor, including the white ink. So with that in mind, if you're going to do any fabricating or cutting after printing, fabricating means if you're going to do any heat bending, if you're going to do any cutting, routing, you see that the elasticity and the adhesion is just outstanding on this ink set. Get these out of the way. What I want to show you is with the foam board signs, the foam board, this is a paper-based product, right? This is printed at 4-pass. So here you see the richness, you see the smoothness, litho-like quality, no smell, gorgeous, right? We're printing at 20 boards an hour at this quality, 24x8 boards an hour at this quality on our R2000 printer. Notice also we are full bleed. So if you're printing pre-cuts, right, you want to go full bleed, you do not have to clean the belt, meaning those of you who know UV, that you know that it will build up on the belt. Let me show you. Your ink will build up on the belt, causing you to stop and clean the belt. You will not have that with our latex inks. They're so thin, so smooth, that you can't even feel it on the belt. You won't get that buildup and issue. Lastly, I do want to say here you'll also see 90% ink. Look at the bright reds that you get, and also the balanced grays and the details. Okay. So what I want to do now, Fernando is going to talk to you about the inks themselves and get the technology, but I want to show you the ink set here on the printer and how your operator would be managing that. This is our ink supply cabinet located on the output side of our printer. On the R1000, our cartridges are 3-liter cartridges. On the R2000, we have 5-liter ink cartridges. Except for the white ink is always 3-liter. We have a quick disconnect or quick connect, however you want to look at that. And this is the ink cartridge, when you purchase it. Comes in a recyclable container. Here we have our Green Guard and Ecoloco certifications. And what's really great about this is that with the connection here, I could simply just connect the ink and I'm ready to go. You see I have cyan right next to the black. Well, if I'm not paying attention, I try to put the cyan into the space for the black, it will not connect because each of these connectors are keyed, so it protects your printer from mixing that ink. Also, what's very important is that our ink is hot swappable. During production, as you're running, you
Dan, I think we're losing you. Yeah, we'll try again. Move it. No. No, we got some technical difficulties.
Okay.
Let's see. There you go. Coming back.
All right, sorry about that. So I just want to say with our optimizer, for those of you that know Latex, of course we have optimizer, otherwise Fernando will be talking about that. And we also have overcoat. Overcoat is specific to the R series. Overcoat is something that is in our Gen 3 latex inks, but now you have full control over overcoat and you'll see the advantages of that. Lastly, the white ink. The white ink, if you notice, has 2 connectors here on our cartridge. Pay attention to that because we'll cover that in our next segment. Fernando?
Thanks, Dan. All right, so before we get deep into our ink technology, we need to compare to what is known as the standard in the industry. When we think of large format, we think of UV for rigid media. And UV does come with some challenges. For one, they tend to smell. They also inherit something called gloss matte banding. This happens at higher speeds bidirectionally. Later on, I'll explain why that happens. Depending on whose formulation of ink you might be using, you may be limited to color gamut. Also, depending on whose ink you're using, you may inherit issues with adhesion, specific type of medias with chipping, cracking, peeling, specifically when routing or hand cutting. What if you have multiple technologies on your floor trying to manage and maintain color consistency across these technologies can also be a challenge. And then UV doesn't lend itself very well to lamination because of its rough surface, low and high spots. So you might get something called silvering. So our competitors force customers to make trade-offs. Sure, they will give you a formulation of ink specifically designed for adhesion at the expense of maybe color gamut. What if you're looking for glossiness, or what if you want a thermoform? You need an ink that has elongation. Or vehicle wrap, you need an ink that has flexibility. It's very challenging to find an UV formulation that can serve all these applications and purposes. And if there is, it's going to come at a higher cost. So then why do we want to switch to latex? Well, for the first time ever, the R series delivers unprecedented quality never seen before in rigid media. And that is because, as John mentioned earlier, we took that very successful Gen 3 technology of ink that our customers love. We reformulated this ink, and we now have more pigment, higher gamut versus UV and solvent. We also pay a license to Extra, one of the leading companies of color tools in the world. And we incorporate a spectral densitometer on board the printer to give you color consistency on multi-substrates and multi-campaigns, multi-projects. And best of all, we maintain the properties and the integrity of the media, giving you that unique touch and feel that you're looking for. So what is new with the R series? Well, as I mentioned, we took that Gen 3 formulation of latex ink, we reformulated it to cure at a lower temperature, we added more pigment. Doing this allows us to print on a wider range of substrates, like plastics, for example. We can now print on polystyrenes, polypropylenes, polyethylenes, polycarbonates, and more. Also, if you're new to latex, we have many components. One of them, Optimizer, which I'll explain what it does. Of course, we have the color. And something new now is we now have the overcoat as a separate component. What I mean by that is overcoat's always been there with Gen 3. It's been part of the formulation of the ink. It's built in the ink. It's a protective agent to help protect the print from scratching. Well, on the R, it's a separate component. We pulled it out of the ink. It now has its own ink cartridge and its own printhead. We did this to allow the end users to configure the right durability and amount for each application. If you want more overcoat, you can add more. If you want less, you could have less. Or if you want to laminate, you don't have to use it, therefore translating to ink savings. So latex ink, it's a water-based ink. We add pigment, which is the color, and then we add other agents like polymers and binding agents, and this is what we call latex. When I say latex, think of latex as a glove because it has elasticity and not like latex paint on your wall. We mix all these elements together and we get our ink. And we want to keep this ink suspended. We want to keep it in flux so that it doesn't separate in sediment. To do that, we pre-charge the particles, and I mean the pigments, with a negative charge. This is what we call an anionic property. So that way everything stays in flux, it's suspended, it doesn't clump up. Now understand that HP is also it's not just a technology company, we are a chemist or a chemical company. We hire our own chemists, we spend millions and millions of dollars on an ink system that can give you all sorts of purposes, one single ink. And we also manufacture the printhead and we manufacture the printer, so we understand every aspect vertically to give you the best solution. Now, Optimizer, what is Optimizer? Well, it's its own element, it's a clear liquid, and we print it first onto the media, but we add a positive charge to it. So it's the opposite of the pigment. And this Optimizer is going to act like a magnet. Once we print onto it, these positive charges are going to help us immobilize and isolate the pigments, which are negatively charged, from the rest of the components, as you can see on the image here on the last diagram. Now, we do that so that the rest of the components, like the water and the binding agents and the latex, stays on top. And this is going to allow us to cure, dry, more efficiently at a lower temperature and faster. So in other words, Optimizer was designed for speed and quality. Optimizer is not a primer because we're not flooding the media with it. In fact, we only use it where there's ink only. on average about 18% optimizer to 100% ink. And it's not an adhesion promoter either, because the ink does very well with or without optimizer. It just depends on which media you might be printing to. And then we finish it off with the overcoat to give that protection, that anti-scratch protection. So even though we're printing with 3 layers, optimizer, color, and overcoat, we maintain the properties of the ink. That means larger color gamut. If you print on something that's glossy, your ink or your print is going to look glossy. If you print on a substrate that is matte, your print is going to look matte. What if you print on a metal piece like a brushed aluminum or a cardstock that has a foil over it? Your ink is going to take on those properties and it's going to look metallic or iodized. Now, here's a comparison between UV ink, curable ink, and latex. And you can see that UV leaves peaks and valleys. That is because UV ink does not evaporate. It cures instantly under those UV lamps, leaving behind a rough surface, high spots and low spots. And this is what contributes to that matte gloss banding, because the light refracts differently from those low and high spots. And so very particular with UV ink. Now with latex, we print with a really thin thickness of ink film. On average about 3 to 6 microns. That is very thin, giving us the ability to have no orange peel, meaning no coalescence, maintaining that flexibility, also no chipping, no peeling when cutting. You want to go to lamination, you can, right off the printer. And we maintain that environmental design that HP is known for. On this diagram, we see a comparison between our color gamut, being the blue shape, against other technologies and ink sets in the industry. We can now hit up to 77% of those Pantone colors. That means being able to reproduce those hard to reach corporate branded colors that you typically have a hard time with UV. Notice how the small shape here, the darker shape, represents the 261 to 58 ink set from Canon. This ink is designed for ink adhesion at the expense of not having good color gamut. So we're going to give you, your business and your operators, what matters the most. And that is the highest certifications in the industry, like Ecologo, meaning no harmful VOCs, no need to ventilate the printer, no need to wear special equipment. Green Guard Gold, meaning you're not limited to an application, whether you're doing indoor or outdoor prints. So what about white latex ink? Well, we left this for last because it is a big deal. In the UV world, when you think of white ink, you think of purging, waste, hard to manage, clogged nozzles. HP wanted to change all that. And Dan's going to show us momentarily what it's all about. But some of the takeaways about our HP latex white ink is that it stays white over time. It has no photo initiators in it like UV does. UV starts turning yellow over time. Our ink is one of the glossiest whites in the industry. It's a true white, meaning it's neutral, it has no cast. And it's easy to maintain, it's painless with relatively zero waste. So we're gonna go live with Dan and he'll show us some prints and setting up the printer with white ink. And so we are live.
We're back on the input side of the printer, and now we're going to print with white ink. For the operator, nothing changes. Everything looks the same. Everything operates the same way. Using my IPS, I choose my media, and automatically I have my media settings ready to go. In this case, it is a black PVC, and we're going to print what we call spot white, white only. That's what you're about to see. I'm going to print 3 up again, 3 different images, just to show you the versatility. Our white ink, as you see here, we have multiple print modes for the white ink, but in a nutshell, you can go up to 260% opacity, really dense white ink. But also, we printed the gradations to show how fine that you can print, how smooth. This print here on a clear window film, for example, looks like frosted glass. You can get very detailed, 4-point type, and very, very fine design, transparent designs. That would be spot white. With the white and color combinations available on this printer, there are many, many high dollar, high value products that you can produce. We have different modes that will allow us to lay down white ink and color, or color then white ink, various combinations known as overflood, underflood, and sandwich modes. The way this is possible is that we have 2 white print heads in relation to our color print heads. The 2 white print heads are staggered. One is slightly in front of the color print heads, the other slightly behind. This is very important because this allows the operator to load the media on the input side. When it comes out of the output side, it's finished, no matter what combination of overflood, underflood, or sandwich modes you might use, because the printer will automatically lay down white then color, or color then white, etc. The operator will never have to bring the media back around, put it back in again, try to re-register. Fernando has a slide. It's just one slide, but it does show all the different features, the different modes, white and color modes that are available today. Keep in mind, these were not always available from day one, but that's another feature where we constantly do upgrades, and this is what Tom alluded to. And those upgrades are, those firmware upgrades are automatically downloaded to your IPS so that your printer is constantly improving over time. So I'll let Fernando talk about these white print modes now.
Thanks, Dan. So, as Dan mentioned, we have different print modes we can use white with. The first one called underflood. This is where you print on media that is not clear. You print white first, color on top. The second one is the overflood. This is done in reverse or mirror or second surface. This is typically done also on clear media like polycarbonates, acrylics, plexiglass, glass, clear vinyls, and static links. You print color first, white on top. And then the spot mode, this is all done in a single layer where the white or in the color does not overlap each other, or whether you want to print white by itself like Dan's doing on today's demo. And then last but not least are the sandwich modes. These are known as the 3-layer, also known as day and night, and the 5-layer mode known as blackout. The 3-layer, think of a bus shelter, and there is a light box in this bus shelter. Light box is going to be turned off during the day. Print looks nice, very saturated, looks very good. And then at night, the light box comes on. We don't want that print to washed out, right? We don't want it to look pale. So we print a 3rd layer. So we print color, white, and color. For the blackout mode, we print color, white, a black layer in between, and then another white, and then color. Notice how the images are different. This is because an example of this is you walk into a storefront, you see on the glass door, you see a sign that says in and out. So this blackout layer will keep the light from coming through and affecting the image on the backside. So very neat. Understand also that any of these modes are printed in a single pass. No need to feed the media twice or 3 times through the printer. All right, so we're gonna go back to Dan, and he'll be able to give us more information about the white system.
Some examples of the white layers that Fernando is talking about, I'd like to show you here. This is a clear polycarbonate, and we are looking through the clear material at the ink. There is a white overflood on the back. So we printed color and white overflood on one side and end up with a really stunning piece. You can print museum graphics with this, definitely high dollar graphics by maybe putting 4 standoffs in and hanging it on the wall. You could also, by varying the white density, turn this into a backlit as well. So very powerful. Here's one where we're taking the brushed aluminum, and on the brushed aluminum, the ink does is it does not hide the integrity of that metal. You know, when we put this latex ink, this thin latex ink onto this metal, look, you could still see the brushed aluminum elements through the blue, through the red, because there's no white ink behind there, right? It looks like an anodized metal. And then we use some white ink just to create a skyline. So really great effects for high-end graphics. One of my favorites is you go to your big box store and you buy a hunk of wood and cha-ching, you turn it into money. So here we are, we're taking the ink, putting it right onto wood. Remember, green, the inks are green. This product is very popular today. You can still feel almost the grain of the wood rather than the ink sitting on top. Really amazing. Think again, in high-end retail graphics, but also the home decor market. And we have our 5-layer mode here. This is a clear, thin plastic polycarbonate also, printed only to one side. We send 2 files to the printer. Printer automatically puts them together when we choose the 5-layer mode. We're printing an image, then white, then black, then white, and then an image, right? So when you turn that over, there you are. You have 2 images, and it is opaque, right? So this is the push-pull type messaging that you'll see on retail. Really, really stunning. Again, one time through the printer. Lastly, we do have the spot color. This is what I just printed. This is white only, but this is very important because you can see the details that you can get with these print heads and this ink set. People think that there is color in this just because of the detail, but it's white only. Really, really great. So owning white ink, that's the pain point of those of you that are experienced with UV ink, UV flatbeds. With UV ink, you are always purging that ink to take care of their print heads. That's just the technology. However, when you have white ink in your UV and you're purging that white ink if you're not using it, that's much more painful. That's the next level because you're not always printing with white ink. This is common. So HP has solved that problem, allowing you to bring white ink into your shop and offer it at no risk because we have something that's called macro recirculation. Macro recirculation all starts here with this ink supply. Remember I said to remember those 2 connectors, right? That's because on this 3-liter container of white ink, inside, we cut the back off so you can see that we have 2 bags inside. When you purchase this, 1 bag is full, 1 bag is empty. The operator simply puts it into the ink supply, connects it, and the printer automatically starts pumping white ink to the print heads and then back to the empty side, the empty bag. As one bag is emptying, the other is filling, and vice versa. It does this automatically, no intervention by the operator. This is keeping your white ink in suspension and healthy and ready for whenever you're ready to print with white ink. No more worrying about someone having to shake the ink prior to printing or taking care of it. You just concentrate on your business, let the printer do its work. Now, when I'm talking about macro recirculation, there's another component. We have the ink side, ink supply side, but here on the print head side, we have something that's called an auxiliary print head. The auxiliary print head is the other link to the macro recirculation. The way that works is I mentioned that we have 2 white print heads in this printer. This is an actual print head, as you can see, and this is our auxiliary print head, which is very similar, of course, in size and shape. Our print head comes with all the nozzles. You're about to learn about those in the next segment, but our auxiliary print head has no nozzles. That is because now what you're going to see is when I'm going to remove the white print heads and I'm going to replace it with the auxiliary print head so that now I'm not printing with white ink, but my white ink is circulating through the printer with no loss, 0 loss of white ink. Now, the operator does this themselves. It's very simple. The printer is made. Our print heads are consumables and the operator, very easy for them to swap them out. Here, when we look at the production, our mock production, we say there's no more white jobs on the board today. Let's take the white print heads out. Here on the touch screen, I simply say replace. It gives an animation on how to proceed. What that means is tells me to lift open the printhead carriage lid. Now I can access the printheads by just moving the carriage over. Also, I can open up my door to give me access to my maintenance area. This carriage has 8 printheads on it. We have 2 optimizer printheads on this end. Next, we have the overcoat printhead. Next, we have our 3 bicolor printheads. And then lastly, but not least, our 2 white printheads. So we want to remove the white printheads. We start by removing these 2 cartridges. These cartridges are capping stations. Inside this capping station, we have the auxiliary printhead that I just mentioned. And we have 2, of course, 1 for each white printhead. Operator opens up these 2 latches, well, 1 latch for printhead 1 and 1 latch for printhead 2, and simply lifts the printhead out, very similar to what you do at your home printer or the small printer in your office, except much more robust industrial design. I take the white printhead and I put it into that capping station, that cartridge. I take the auxiliary printhead and put it in place into the place of white printhead number 1 slot. Then I repeat that process, of course, with printhead number 2 into the capping station, auxiliary printhead into slot number 2. Close the latch, push the carriage home, and close the lid. So that's all there is to it. I now have a 6-color printer instead of 6-color plus white. My auxiliary printheads are in there. My white ink is circulating, macro circulating for 0 waste. Now I have 2 printheads though that are being used, and they're still good. They have white ink in them. We don't want them to dry out. So here's what we do. Back here to what we call the offline rotation chamber, I put the cartridge back into their appropriate slot. And what you'll see is this will rotate 190 degrees every 20 minutes. It does that automatically, no intervention by the operator. The printer, that's part of our macro recirculation process. And this is our offline rotation chamber, taking care of your white printheads, keeping it rotating, keeping the ink moving inside, and keeping them capped. Your printheads can stay in here indefinitely. There is no limit on that. So when it comes time to print with white again, you simply reverse the process that you just saw. We take the white printheads, we put them into the carriage and put the auxiliary printheads back here into the offline rotation chamber. Okay. This is our web wipe system. This is the system that will wipe the printheads automatically. This is part of your maintenance. It looks like a large roll of paper towel. This, no tools required. We connect it to we put it on the supply side, feed it through to the take up side, and the printer takes it over from there. It manages that. What it does, it moves a clean area up underneath the printheads, and that's where it does the wipe, and then advances. So you're always wiping the printheads with a brand new clean material. Of course, here on the IPS, that's the operator can see exactly where that is, how much is left. It's automatically managed. And you always know the status of your maintenance roll. Okay? So hopefully that gives you a good idea of how easy it is to own white ink here with this printer. It allows you to get involved in the world of white ink, which is very fascinating, and you create high-end products at virtually no risk.
Thanks,
Fernando?
Sam. Thank you. All right, so this is our ink technology. You've seen color prints, you've seen white prints. So now this one single set of ink set to provide you with a wide range of markets, applications, indoor and outdoor as well. Now, when it comes to the print heads, we need to also compare to UV, right? Because UV does require periodic cleaning between jobs, between shifts, between whether the printer sat for too long or even over the weekend. And operators tend to have to wear special equipment to, right, because we're dealing with harsh chemicals like solvent-based to clean this UV ink. Now, some of these systems may have up to 24, 32 print heads at a time. And so they definitely have to be maintained perfectly. Otherwise, it can be very costly. With our system, our HP Latex thermal inkjet technology, here we see a diagram of this print head. Now, these print heads are a consumable. They're really affordable and easily replaced by the end user. These characteristics minimize production downtime, it maximizes peak printhead performance, and also maintains the highest quality. As you can see in the image, we see the nozzles here. We have 5 different dies. Also, we see 2 chambers. Each of these chambers can drive different colors. This is what is known as the bicolor configuration. Each of these dies can have over 2,000 nozzles at a time for a total of over 10,000 nozzles per printhead, giving you a true optical resolution of 1200 dpi per inch. A piezo technology does not have more than 300 nozzles per inch. So this revolutionary nozzle design produces the highest quality prints, flawless gradients like you saw on the example that Dan showed us with the white gradient, and the finest details. How about not having to purge again, right? Our engineers developed these printheads to have micro pumps adjacent to each nozzle to keep the ink at a constant viscosity and flow, even while the nozzle is idle before ejection. The printer can sit idle for a while, come back, hit print, no need to purge. With latex, we don't purge, we just wipe. So we're gonna get into flexible media workflow. And for that, we'll use our virtual app fairly quick. We see input and output tables on this printer, which can be removed. You can see their own casters. That's going to give us access to the supply spindle and the take-up spindle you see below. These spindles are the same design that our industrial 3-meter machines use, like the L1500 and 3000 series. What does that mean? It means that they have been injected with carbon fiber to make them very robust, very lightweight, also to handle. Some of these print modes, we have the roll-to-roll option. We have the roll-to-freefall. We have tabletop roll holder, which we'll explain in a minute. And a new feature called the anti-skew feature. This anti-skew feature allows the operator to load the flexible media, and this is going to automatically realign it. We want to prevent any ripples, any wrinkles traveling into the print zone. Even if the operator loads the flexible substrate skewed or crooked, this will fix it. In fact, you can configure this function to do this function periodically throughout the whole run so you get a perfect roll from beginning to end. Now, roll to roll, as the name implies, you're going to be using the supply and take-up spindle for long runs, for unattended printing, even overnight. The operator can queue a job, hit print, late at night or late in the afternoon, go home, come back the next day, job is complete. It just works. Then we have the roll to free fall. This is designed for those urgent jobs that have to be cut off the printer as they come out, first in, first out, and go to finishing. Also notice how we can print really close to the edge here for relatively zero waste. And then finally, our tabletop roll holder. This is a fan favorite, yeah. And this is designed also for those short runs or specific applications where Dan is going to show us a live demo. So we're gonna go live in 3, 2, 1, live.
Keeping in mind, this is a hybrid printer, right? We're showing you rigids, but we also printing roll, just like Fernando covered, roll the roll, roll the free fall. But this is definitely, as a production person, my favorite, and this is the tabletop roll holder. This allows you to print rigids and quickly switch over to a roll material and then right back to rigids. It could be a banner, it could be a panel for a car wrap that you're doing, wallpaper, anything flexible like this. What's really great is that you just, what the operator does is tells the IPS, I'm going to load it tabletop. So the printer is responding accordingly. Again, that automation is amazing. The printer comes with 2 of these media holders with rollers on them. They have positioning pins. You simply place them on the table where we have pre-drilled holes. Depending on the width of your roll, you lay your media right on top, feed it into the printer. The printer will bring it in, automatically measure the width and position of this roll. So I don't have to worry about exactly where I place it. The printer will know, right? So this is definitely powerful for other reasons. If you have a core that's been damaged and our 3-inch core will not work on our spindle because maybe it's crushed inside, you probably come across that, you can still print that media, as well as having the wrong size core. Maybe it comes in on a 2-inch core accidentally, you still get to print that media. Very powerful, very easy to use, very versatile. So I know that you'll definitely enjoy this aspect as a production person. What we'll do is meet on the output side of the printer. We'll take a look at this banner print and wrap this up. On the output side, of course, we do have this table. Of course, we have a table on the input side. On the Plus series, not only do these tables come with the printer, but you also get extension tables, another 37-inch table. Looks just like this. It'll connect to this table for a nice long landing zone for longer boards. The tables also roll away and fold away. So really nice if you need some extra production space. And of course, if you're accessing your printer for any reason, or you're working with your roll-to-roll. This is the printing zone. You saw the loading zone, we mentioned printing zone. This area here, this unit here is the curing zone. This is where the ink is cured with heat and air. Of course, automatic part of your media settings. Each one of these modules here have their individual modules, and they will work only if there is media in that area. If I'm printing a smaller sign, the modules here will engage with the heat and air and not on that end. Of course, the smart system once again. When you are loading media, if you're going to do the roll-to-roll, question comes up and says, well, how much waste will I have on my media? Well, with this loading system here, whether you're doing roll-to-roll, roll-to-floor, or tabletop, the 2 buttons that are here will advance your media forward or back. And we have the same 2 buttons on the input side. So once the media is loaded, the printer has loaded that media, measured it, the operator can use these buttons to position it exactly where they want to start printing based on your media. Then as you're printing, you can then attach it to your take-up spindle. The take-up spindle as well, 2 buttons, they kept it simple, either rotate it this way or that way, depending on what your post-print production needs are. So that's the presentation today. I hope it was helpful, and we'll send it back to Fernando.
All right, thank you, Dan. And I think we're gonna hand it over to Tom now. Tom?
Yeah, thanks, Fernando. Thanks, Dan. Hope you guys are staying safe. I just wanted to go through just a couple points of emphasis, what we call success points about the R. I think everybody saw a lot of the capabilities of what it can do. But application-wise, like I said in the intro today, you know, the biggest reward for us is what our customers have asked us for and what we've been able to deliver in terms of applications. And this has really helped our customers. It helped them pivot into new applications, and it kind of gets them away from printing jobs and printing more projects. And anytime you can do that, you probably have a bigger audience, and you certainly will have a better profit margin. So anyway, I just want to look at those real quick. If we look at, you know, 5 or 6 applications, this really validates what everybody said today, from John to the guys in the lab to myself. These 6 applications just work really well. This isn't really a one-trick type of device where you're just slamming boards through it. You can get into jobs, you can get into projects, you can get into new markets like decor, print on lots of different substrates with, you know, really good image quality. And again, if you're building a business and you're running a business, this just gives you more tools to leverage that platform and find new customers. And that's kind of what we all want to do. So that's good with a single ink set. Packaging is one of the biggest new verticals that we've really identified as high growth. Most of the people in the industry, like Keypoint Intelligence, which used to be Infotrends, they look at the market, what they think has a report on the market, and whenever you read their research, it really points to packaging. People are not only happy with the fact that they can produce packaging, but they can do it at scale. They can do micro marketing, they can do short runs, they can change versions, and this is exceptionally critical for those companies that are going through some branding changes. So this is actually a really hard box to print. This is a ski boot box. Here's probably a better shot of it, but this is probably one of the toughest ones that you ever want to print. It's got a reverse of a 3 or 4 color process build. It's got a vibrant red. It's got tremendous neutrality. It's got a gradation. On the other side, you can't see it. It has UPC codes which have to be scanned. So really, this is a tough one, and this is kind of a fan favorite as well because we're not chipping, we're not cracking. We've got excellent fill and uniformity. So packaging is something that is very popular on the R series. Same thing goes for aluminum. One of the topics Fernando talked about was the thickness of the ink, or lack of thickness of the ink is probably more appropriate. But the ability to print on different substrates, maybe some that have texture or some that have a metallized finish or a brushed finish, in case point here, you see that feature characteristic can come through the media. So this is kind of nice, and it's very high profit margin for decor because of the image quality and because of the fit and finish of it. Glass is something that's really big in the demarcation of COVID. I think we're going to see more glass. We're going to see more partitions out of plastic, especially in restaurants. Office spaces will probably be reconfigured. So aligning yourself with technology that prints with a water-based ink that doesn't have hazardous air pollutants is probably a good thing. And there's some other things too that it does a real neat job. One of my favorites is metallized wallpaper. You probably wouldn't know it, but this is a silver metallic wallpaper. And you can see that we've changed the tint of the silver, and we added color and we added white to neutralize some of the metallic. But again, this is a high profile application that kind of goes beyond wall decor, and people with the R series have done this because they can do it, and they're actually one of the few people that can do it. One of the last things we talked about today was flexible, and we talked about being able to print white on flexible. About 32% of what's printed on this platform, coast to coast, is on the roll as opposed to rigid. That's one of the benefits of a hybrid printer. So if you do want to print white in an under flood mode, over flood mode, you want to print at spot, you want it to print on clear materials, this is really the printer to do it. It does a great job. We're continuously improving the amount of options that we have for people. We started out with 3 options of color. We added a 60% color. So we're starting to do more privacy type films now. But again, self-adhesive vinyl, if it's transparent, this works great. Same thing goes for window clings or polypropylene, being able to use white. White is usually about maybe half of what people print on the roll, give or take the month, because they can print it. This is really probably the fastest printer that you can print white that looks very good and doesn't compromise any of the materials. So polypropylene is another one. And the last thing I kind of want to close with is kind of my favorite, which is thermal forming. Thermal forming is when you're able to print to a plastic or decorate a plastic and then heat that plastic to upwards of 300 or 400 degrees Fahrenheit, and then bend it around shapes or objects or molds, and then put it out for viewing. There's really 4 key areas of thermoforming. One is what you would guess. It's signage. It could be your fast food, your quick service restaurants, hotel, motel, petroleum, signs like the BP that you see here. These are all hand decorated today. They're decorated with cut vinyl. They're decorated with paint and lots of paint, actually, and stencils, believe it or not. But outdoor signage is great for our series. Again, we have great elasticity, as Fernando mentioned, and then we can sustain the elongation. The point of purchase is a natural fit for us as well, because we can do things like wobblers, danglers, shelf strips, end cap merchandisers. We can even blow form into Coke bottles, all with the fidelity that you heard about today. Gaming is another one. Gaming is in the secondary and tertiary markets for slot machines, progressive slots, anything like that. These could be top signs. They could be bezels that go around the screen. They could be the chair that you see here, the backlit part of the chair. So again, we're creating new things that have never been really decorated before digitally. And it's probably not so hot right now with gaming, but I think maybe next year everything will be back on the up and up, and gaming will be back in good form. And then one that I think has the best upside really is the industrial manufacturing. Being able to decorate for automotive, aftermarket, bug shields, wind deflectors, fender flares, kind of like you see here, but even other things into, luggage, bathtubs, backsplashes. Huge potential here. This is a big blue ocean, very untapped. And again, the R has taken away a lot of the pain points and it's filled in a lot of the gaps. So we do have a kind of like a Q&A with Plastics News on the 11th of August. So if you want to join that, just let us know. We're proud of the awards that we win. They're pretty resounding wins for us, and we're just getting started with this platform. So had we gone to ISA this year in Orlando, we would have picked this one up. But needless to say, we're happy where we're at with this platform. We're hoping you enjoy that. We can open it up to Q&A, and then I will turn it back over to Tom Wittenberg to close us out.
Okay, thanks, Tom. As he mentioned, we are opening it up to Q&A, and we do have some questions coming in. First one, Tom, this is probably more for you. For thermoforming, can you do detergent bottles?
On the face of this question, I would say yes. There's probably some details that we would probably need to know. But for packaging, which kind of the detergent bottles or, plastic bottles or blister packs, yes, you can do that.
Okay. Next question is, can we run 015 styrene sheets or rolls?
So both. We can run sheets using, we have settings in here for heat sensitive media like a thin polystyrene. We have in our OMS settings, we have settings in there to help manage anything that is too heat sensitive. We also have a curing lever, is what we call it here. This is something that defers the heat, the curing heat to the most forward side of the printer away from the print zone to allow you to print flat, because that's what we need to do. After that, we can allow for a little bit of deformity and then flattening out. And of course, or you can go roll. We could go roll to roll with our 015 or thin polystyrene. What I found with the manufacturers, they will put it on a 3-inch core, which is what we have, but they really like to use a 6-inch core, and I like that idea because of the memory, right? As that media gets closer to the core. We do have we have core adapters that we don't make them. We just recommend a company that does. And we have that information for you if you need it. We use them here at the GEC. They work fantastic. They work in conjunction with our 3-inch cores. So.
Okay, couple more questions here. How much board preparation is required with the substrates?
So board preparation is just more of a, I mean, the way I look at it, like common sense. I mean, if it's dirty, don't take the wrong way, if it's dirty, I'll clean it off. Anything like that by default, I've always had some isopropyl alcohol in a rag in my pocket and just sort of wiping things down. Nothing special, nothing beyond any normal printing, okay?
Okay, and then a few things on double-sided printing. Can you elaborate on the accuracy of the double-sided printing and how do you ensure that the alignment is correct on the opposite sides of the boards?
I'm going to have Fernando turn on the input side camera, and I'd rather show you while I tell you. So here on the input side, let me grab a piece of Coro or media. We have an alignment bar on this side, I mean a left alignment bar that you can pick up, lay down, and that's where you're going to put your media against that. And it's a long alignment bar, but the key is we have one here on the right side as well, right? So what you do for your double-sided printing, you print side one, and what are we using? We're using the top edge, do it this way. We're using the top edge and one edge, right, for our alignment into the printer. Then we're flipping it over and we're using the same leading edge and that same side edge for the opposite side. So even if your board is not perfectly square, your contact point will be exactly the same. And of course, the printer reads where that media is. Does an excellent job with double-sided printing.
So if you're familiar with commercial offset, we turn the sheet on a work and turn direction to keep the lead edge always the same for that registration. And if you're familiar with screen printing uses a 3-point registration system. And so we are basically adopted the same concept.
Okay, now a follow-on question. How does it do with double-sided printing on something like vinyl? Do the inks heat up and smear?
On vinyl, double-sided printing on vinyl plastic. I mean, you mean on any media?
Yeah, I would say any media, but the vinyl was specifically called out.
Yeah, maybe PVC vinyl or double-sided.
Yeah, I mean
banner or something.
No, I mean we have the adhesion. I mean you have the adhesion. You have the overcoat, which is anti-scratch protectant, and that allows you to increase that too if you needed more protection. So you have all the tools you need to manage, you know, any challenges you might have. But double-sided on this printer is, you know, very common, very popular with all of our end users.
Okay, how do the prints hold up to fingerprints?
Fantastic. It's the same idea. Like when if I'm printing something like, you know, something a very light blue, very light gray or something, I might be a little bit more, you know, aware again, but I'm a fan of the isopropyl alcohol. It's just my favorite, and like a lint-free rag and use care, but no issues.
Make sure your operators are not eating Cheetos before loading a media, so that'll help.
Pizza.
Yeah. Also, the individual that asked the question about printing the double-sided printing on vinyl, I think this is what he or she was getting at was vinyl banner too, or I guess maybe it was vinyl banner versus just vinyl.
Yeah, that makes sense. So on vinyl banner, it is, people do double-sided on here, but how I like to put it is it's not supported, meaning we have other printers that have an OMOS, a camera on the back side, so that you can print and it'll read, the camera will read the positioning for that double-sided printing. Because we have a belt driving our flexible media through this printer, We have an OBOS, which is managing the belt, of course, making sure the belt is traveling perfectly. However, it is not able to see any sort of registration marks that would be printed on that first side and then flipped over. So it becomes, it is a manual process.
Okay.
Meaning you're putting a mark on the other side, lining it up with the buttons and printing that way. People do it that way.
Can the overcoat be laminated?
The overcoat can be, but the idea with that is, you know, you can, yes, because you can have overcoat as part of your OMS settings, you know, because you could have a very low 0.01, 0.05 and laminate. So the idea is that why use it if you don't have to, right? When you're going to laminate. What you could find is if you have too much overcoat, maybe you have a laminate that just doesn't want to stick because that overcoat is protecting the ink, right? So a simple test would tell you, and then otherwise you just turn it off.
Okay, and then how do you clean the belt from an overspray of ink?
Again, it's the alcohol and a nylon brush. Actually, it comes with the printer, the nylon brush, because it is a transpirable mesh, as Fernando pointed out. So that's why the brush could clean it easiest.
Okay. And can you print window perf without the vinyl heating up and getting head strikes? I've heard concerns with heat causing head strikes on a variety of the plastic materials like Coro, styrene, etc.
Yeah, so what you want to remember is that this ink cures at a lower temperature than all of our previous Generation 3 inks, and that was on purpose. That's because of that challenge, right? People printing the thin plastics, etc. So no, the settings that are in here, that you have full control over: printing temperatures, printing airflow, cure temperatures, cure airflow, inner pass delays, curing handles. All of the ingredients are there, and these also exist on, if it's been certified and tested, you could find that on the media locator and simply download that and test it there. But you have all the knobs, I like to say, at your access for media like that. Mm-hmm.
Okay, it looks like we have at least one more here. Have you, if you have to move from one facility to another facility, how difficult is it to set up the printer again?
Yeah, it's not, because I talked to service about that. That comes up. There are actually, the wheels are still on this printer, and there are, if you might have seen this before, but there are transportation rigs that you could, but on that are when it's brought in. But here you could simply lower the, bring up the feet, I should say, and then the wheels are on the floor, and you're moving it carefully. Now, putting it on a vehicle and taking it somewhere is above my pay grade. We could certainly find out what that means, but moving it around your facility, no, that's a common practice.
Okay. That looks like all the questions we have. So thank you very much. Appreciate your answers, guys. Tom, I think, were you going to share, I think you had one slide with upcoming events?
Yeah, I will pop that up again.
Oh, you did? Okay.
I did at the beginning this time. Just give me a second.
Okay.
And I will share. And so just everybody wants to take a note of that. Should be up right now. So
okay.
Everyone takes a note of that. We'd love to have you join us again. And thanks again for spending your Friday with us.
Yeah, thank you very much. And if you want more information, one area that you can go to, one website, is the hpvirtualbooth.com. I'd recommend that. You can find some upcoming events there. You can register for upcoming events. There are recordings of past events. And then there's basically a lot of information on the specifications for the printers and some of the applications that you can do. So a lot of good information out there. And thanks to the crew in Alpharetta. Very much appreciated, guys. And
Thanks,
that's
guys.
pretty much it for today. Thank you for coming.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.